Right now, I want to talk about bad leadership in the 40-hour film project. There are some teams that do the 40-hour film project, and it turns into a very dysfunctional Jerry Springer type of environment. And I really want to talk about, what makes bad teams with bad leadership. And I also just want to say that these are just kind of warning signs for anybody, because we all can learn and work on ourselves, and we can also just work on improving. And sometimes if we're a leader and we have problems, we can always find training and help to do better. But it's also very important to understand the impact we have on other people if we are leading a team and it's dysfunctional. So, this is, even though there's some negativity in this video, this is meant to be positive and constructive. The first thing I see in bad teams is disorganization. And the thing that I kind of understand is that there's many people who are doing this, and this may be their first film project or whatever. So the big thing that usually happens is that people bail on their projects, or they have a lot of stuff going on in their personal life. Usually it's young people, so they're in college or they have student loan debt. So they're always talking about their personal problems or bitching about their personal projects, or they get kind of overwhelmed with their personal life and then also their film life. And usually in disorganization, it's just, not responding to people, or somebody's doing editing or writing and they throw away their ideas because they kind of have they want to just stick with somebody else, but they don't communicate that, or they have somebody work on their project and then they kind of criticize when that person does a great job. Or, something that happened to me was I was working on a very disorganized team that they had all the footage given to me 5 hours before 5 hours before we're supposed to turn it in. They stopped me every half an hour to have a 15-minute meeting. And then I kind of found out at the end that they actually kind of did the editing themselves. They did another version and they took my name off of it. So it was a big fuck you to me, but they were very disorganized, and karma bit them in the ass because they did another project. They put $2,000 on it, but the lead actors walked off because they were saying this person's very disorganized, always changing ideas, changing locations, having, and just it's really going nowhere, and there's always arguments. So organization is very, very important, and that just means not doing too much, having a strategy and sticking with it, and then when mistakes come up, you kind of go by what you're supposed to do. And I think the other part of it is that there is a chain of commands on your project, so everybody knows who's in charge, and who's in charge is respected. And if you have if you have 2 directors or 3 directors, they have to be on the same page. Because the issue that happens is that there may be too many leaders, and then it becomes disorganized, or there's one person who's the leader, and then they're taking on too many tasks, so they can't control, so they can't get a lot of things done. Or you have a leader that is a Ned Flanders type. They just will agree, they'll try to make everybody happy, or they may be naive, so people work them, and then they get taken advantage of. So the next thing that I will say as far as good leadership is to be somebody that I feel, the next thing that I'll say about good leadership is to be somebody, the next thing that I'll say about bad leadership is somebody who is dishonest, or a manipulator, or a really toxic person. So that just means, again, if you're just lying to your cast and crew about to getting things done, just saying that we're going to get this done today, or we're going to wrap this up, and they're an extra 3 or 4 hours, it's going to make people angry. The next thing is also, sometimes, and I've met directors who do this, they'll say that we're not doing a project, and then they're going to invite all their friends and do a project behind people's backs. Or sometimes they tell actors to do this, to join other people's projects, and then they pull them off to join their own projects. So people are relying on these actors, and then they join somebody else, and they're kind of you know what, that's part of the film business. And unfortunately, the film business has taught an attitude of backstabbing, bullying, lying, taking people who are talented and saying, you know what, if we kind of screw them over a bit, and people like lie about being on their project and show up on other people's projects, it does create an environment of backstabbing and warfare. And I've seen like competitions, like there's one in New England where they've had an issue with a lot of backstabbing, or directors encouraging backstabbing and throwing and telling people to join teams and then pulling people from those teams so they can go on somebody else's project. And then if people know that you are like that, what ultimately happens is that people won't work with you in the future. And then like people who are running competitions will be like, okay, this guy really teaches dishonesty and lying, and we can't have that person represent because of the bully culture that we're trying to end and all that. So it just doesn't work out long term to be a liar. And the next thing that I'll say is that not having Jerry Springer moments. So, part of good leadership, and one thing that's not really taught, is conflict resolution. So, if you have two producers who are arguing, a producer and a director who is arguing, a director that, is just tired and he's like, flipping out on people. Because I remember working on a film set, and this director was flipping out at somebody because they were not slating correctly. And the guy almost took the slate, was about to hit the director in the back of the head when he wasn't looking because of that. And there were times when this guy was, he just didn't also know how to direct people, because he didn't know how to tell people that, sometimes when you are a director, you have to make sure people follow your vision. And that's how some directors are, like Stanley Kubrick. And then there are some directors like Tarantino that give leeway. So he had to almost like tell people that, this is just how I direct things. And if that doesn't work for you, this is not the project for you. And that's typically standard in the film business. If he kind of said that, then he would have avoided, a fight that almost broke out between a producer and an actor. And then, I actually walked off the project because I was like, I've been through, I seen like some fights at some jobs I've worked at. So I'm not going to expose myself to something that could make me flip out, fight or flight, type of thing, or walk away instead of just taking in some psychological damage. So, you have to make sure that you have a good environment. If you know that people are frustrated, you got to stop and talk to them. You also got to say, if you feel like that this is not right for you, you have to get off the project. And it's not that because it's not me being an ass. It's just, it's best for you. And I'm just looking out for you mentally. I think the fourth thing I would say is do not be a Ned Flanders type. Do not be a pushover. Because I worked with this person who was extremely obsessive compulsive, but more so a control freak. She would show up to projects late. She would say things like, we all need to start like an hour or two later because 7 is too early to film things. She would always try to throw in her nuances when it didn't work. She would like look at the script and say that there's a grammatic error, there's a grammatic error. And then she called me on the phone but the day before the project, and she said, like, I'm a control freak, so you need to watch out. You just decide if you want me there or not. And because I was young and dumb, and this was like close to 10 years ago, I gave her the benefit of the doubt, and it turned out to be a disaster. So you have to understand your red flags. You have to kind of say, too, is that when I know somebody's not going to work out, I have to say, you know what, we can't work with that person. Or if you need them for the project, you wrap them up early, or you even lie to them and say, okay, well, let's do 3 or 4 takes my way. Let's do 3 or 4 takes your way. And you have to understand that, you have to do like your takes maybe in 15 minutes. And that's that, because we have other stuff. I think the best manipulation, or the best thing you can always tell somebody who is trying to hold up everything, is that we don't have time. This is how much time you have. And that's the end of it, because there's other things going on. So you make sure nobody plays you. And then also, if people are liars or they're unprofessional, if they're doing another project, I will always encourage this. You will contact the person that they're doing a project with and say, you know what, I worked with them, they worked with me, and this is how they were. Or I worked with a sound guy that ripped me off. He was supposed to have like 50, 60 audio files, but only had like 1 or 2. But I've definitely seen him join other people's projects. And there's also other people who've worked with him who have a bad word, who have who had bad experiences. So so when he says like hire me, or when other people are saying, you know, well, I'm looking for a sound person, reach out to me. And he says like, I'm interested, I'm going to personal message you. I personal message these guys and say, you know, this is the guy who I worked with, Adam. And I put it out there that he took advantage of me, and he's also taking advantage of a bunch of people. And also because, and also, like, you know, he's gone through some hardships and he has overcome a lot. So sometimes he may use his personal story as some leeway to continue an environment where he's screwing over people. And I stood up for a bunch of people and stopped that. But the thing about it is that now people know when they work with me, if you try to screw me over or you try to screw over other people, I will stand up. And then people respect me now because I do that. And then people respect me because I get rid of the bad people. And it's like what Machiavelli taught. You know, if you're always nice, you get easily conquered. If you are always cruel, you're slowly conquered. But if you're kind and cruel, you know when to be kind and cruel, you're never conquered. But you make sure nobody fucks with you. The fourth thing that I will say is bad is definitely bullying. And I know like a lot of people who are control freaks or very bossy, but some people walk off their project. Some people don't work with them again. And then there's a bad word of mouth. This is unfortunate, but I will say this, that I had a city producer. I did a 48 for one city, and when the city producer told me screw you and fuck you is the philosophy filmmakers live by, I saw a lot of bias. Them kind of promoting their friends. There was a team that got disqualified. They gave this person like over 20 nominations in like the Women in Film Award. This city producer was criticizing my film, making like, you know, like saying, you know, like it was criticizing my film. This person was saying things like they sit in on the judging, they pull favors with Mark Rupert. I've told the story many times, but overall, like, and there were some elements of bullying. And then there was a filmmaker who shared a very personal story about them overcoming suicide and depression at their filmmaking event, and saying they use that emotions in their own writing. And this city producer was making sarcastic gossiping sounds, playing on their phone, almost like trying to burst out laughing because the guy was like a little naive, and some people thought he had an anxiety or autism issue. So they were definitely, so this person was definitely mocking somebody with some mental health or going through a hardship time, instead of just like being a leader and just being professional and appropriate. But I digress. But the thing was that a lot of people don't do that person's competition. A lot of people don't work with that competition. I've gave a bad word of mouth. When I do videos, I talk about how, you know, I used to do 20, 40 hour, I just used to do like over 10, 40-hour film project movies a year, but I only participate on teams. I don't really give them any money anymore. Every couple of years, I may do a film project. But I kind of make it aware that if you bully me or you bully somebody, and you're not a professional, I'm willing to stand it. And then there's also people too that will who don't tolerate bullies. There is commanding leadership, which means if you're on a time crunch, you have to be very assertive. And also, if people are doing something dangerous, you have to kind of be a little bit like a bully too. Not, you know, like harsh because it's a bad situation. And sometimes you lose your temper and you may yell or say something you shouldn't say. You need to apologize in front of everybody. But bullying is not allowed. There are some people who will get hurt, who easily follow bullies because they grew up with abusive parents or whatever. So it's understandable why some people are bullies or respond to bullying or work with people. But long term, it doesn't work out that way. The next thing that I'm going to say is you just know good team working skills. There are people like me who are lone wolves and try to do everything myself. And that never turns out well. Like, filmmaking is all about team building and working with different people. If you have bad communication or leadership, or you have people to take advantage of you, there's always stuff to learn. You can have a job that teaches like management classes. You can also like find like either working with a therapist to learn those skills, or you can find like Skillshare or anything like that. You can always find ways to learn how to work with people. And if you can't work with people, or it's too much, and you have trust issues or social anxiety issues and you don't think you're going to overcome it, don't do the 48 unless you're doing vlogs. Also just do vlogs outside of it. But teamwork is good. You have to know that you can't always rely on yourself. You have to give power to other make to make sure that when you give power to other people, they understand your vision and they're not trying to take over. So these are the things that I feel are bad leadership have led to destruction of teams and destruction of friendships. And we all can be better, and we have to be mindful of what works and doesn't work.